So Jared, I asked Jordan earlier about the difference between the Kansas game and the Virginia Tech game. Obviously, one defense wasn't very good, the other one was outstanding. So, can you put your finger on why you guys are so much better this week than you were a few weeks ago?
I'd say after the Kansas game, we put a lot more preparation in. You know, when you play a game like that and that's the outcome that happens, you go back to the drawing board in a way, and it makes you really consider why exactly the game went wrong. So you go back to the drawing board, you prepare harder, you watch more film, you go harder in the weight room, go harder in practice, and that's the outcome.
Did you feel the run defense this past week was optimal where you wanted it to be?
Yes. Everyone was playing at the level I know they can play at. That's the outcome that happens when everyone does that.
So, what's the challenge this week?
Just next on the schedule.
B. John Robinson, an especially difficult running back. I mean, you guys have you faced him a couple years ago. So, what do you think of him?
I'm familiar with Bijan, but like I said, just next on the schedule.
Sort of along those lines, obviously you guys have your ideas of what it means to hold someone in check or containing, someone. When you guys are facing someone at like a caliber of his, does those ideas change at all? Like, do you almost sort of expect, okay, he's going to get something, but we still got to do.
I wouldn't say those fundamentals would change. I'd say more so you want to focus more on those fundamentals because you gotta with guys like Bijan, if you don't tackle him the right way, he'll get those yards after contact and stuff like that. So we gotta go in there, you gotta put helmets on the ball, 11 guys to the ball, pursuit, stuff like that, and that's how the game's gonna go the way we want it to go.
So, like, at the end of the game, you look at the stat sheet and he's under 100 yards. How big of an accomplishment would that be for this defense?
That'd be great. That'd be great.
Curious, you played in the pit atmosphere at night. You played in the Virginia Tech atmosphere at night, and you're going down to Austin. You're going to play in that atmosphere at night. As a player, how do you mentally get yourself prepared for what you're going to face in a hostile environment at night in a place that's not yours, I guess?
Throughout the week in preparation, the way you practice the game plan, being confident in what you're about to do and the way you're about to perform always helps you in situations like that. It's actually funny because up until this year, the majority of games I played were like noon games and afternoon games and stuff like that. So I think it makes it easier to get excited for those games because you don't get to play those games as often.
So the build up, before you just got up and played.
Yeah.
You got the build up throughout the day, probably get to watch a little bit of college football maybe before you're studying tape. Is that all part of the plan or part of the process of getting ready for the game?
Yes, sir. A little build-up, anticipation,
Yeah.
Eventually. Once you're in a situation, it's like it's a game, so you got to perform regardless. So
Some guys get nervous. I guess the more you think about it, the more your responsibilities. How do you approach it and get yourself mentally focused for what you got to do?
I think nervousness stems from not being prepared in a way. So I think the more prepared you are, the less nervous you'd be.
Just kind of curious. Texas obviously is going through a little quarterback issue with, one guy might play, another guy might play. Do you guys even care which quarterback plays? Does it matter? Or will you guys even be interested in maybe try to look on the internet and see what guys are saying about, like?
Well, regardless of who plays, we're gonna have to perform the same way. I know Quinn Ewers, he's a talented quarterback. I'm not sure what his injury information is and stuff like that. If he plays, then he plays. The other guy, Hudson Card, he's a pretty good quarterback as well. If he plays, he plays. It doesn't matter. Our game plan's not going to change.
You're seeing the same plays, right? What you saw from Card, what you saw from yours, the same block of plays, the same play calls, the same types of things that you're studying.
Generally, yes.
It's the same deal, right?
Generally,
Whoever's
yes.
out there.
Yes.
Jared, how have you played this year?
I played pretty solid. I missed the second half of the Kansas game, and I missed the Towson game due to an injury. But I came back to the Virginia Tech game. I'd like to be more productive, like as I return. Obviously, I have some room to make up for the games and time that I missed. So I've been playing so.
Frustrated when you're hurt? I mean,
Very frustrated, very frustrated because you put in so much work during the off season, and when you don't get a chance to showcase those abilities, it's very frustrating. But it's a process. It's a process that I'm trusting. You know, I trust my trainers. I trust the strength staff. I'm sure I bounce back.
On that note, have you been talking to Charles, and then just any more pressure fall on yourself and you and others like you when you have a star player go down to miss time? Do you feel that?
It's always tough because being a starter in the first place, there's always pressure there. You know, pressure's a privilege. It means things are expected of you. So when you're in situations like that, there's always this urge that you gotta come back, you gotta do this, you gotta do that. And it's like I said, it's frustrating, but it's always a process. You just gotta trust it, get healthy, and then when you can contribute to the rest of the team, that's when you can do it.
Hey, one more on the quarterback situation. So when they've got two guys who could possibly play, do you have to watch film of both guys, or?
Believe I'm already watching film on both of them.
Okay.
You know, like I said, when you're prepared to play, you got to study both quarterbacks. You got to study all the possible situations that could happen. So we're watching both of them.
More film study. So does that make you mad, or?
I don't mind. You know, when you love the game of football, it doesn't matter.
When you're studying them, and you see how do they handle pressure? Do you look at, okay, which way do they escape? Which way are they looking? How are their eyes looking down the field? What are you looking for when you're studying quarterbacks?
I would say yes. You study how they escape. You study how they step up. You study what are their, based on the play, what are their checkdowns and stuff like that. How do they handle pressure? How do they handle being hit? How do they handle how do they handle having guys in their face? You know, stuff like that. A lot of quarterbacks can't handle that. So
How much of that do you actually remember during the game? What's going on?
pretty much all of it. Pretty much all of it. Especially since I'm an older player now. When I was younger, I'm not gonna. Yeah, I was just running around reacting to stuff. But now that I'm older, it's a lot easier to remember the stuff.
You always been a good pass rusher? I mean, going back to high school, was that a learned trait that you've had to develop?
I'd say I developed some, but I think naturally, pass rushing's always been kind of easy to me.
What techniques did you have to learn? What have you picked up that have helped?
Well, for one, I'm a pretty fast guy, so when you're in situations like that, you got to learn how to control your body. And I feel like that's one of the biggest things I've learned, body control. Especially when you want to make the play and you're running full speed, you need to be able to change direction, stuff like that, be able to dip your shoulder, you know, turn your hips, stuff like that, turn your toe. It's all learned techniques and stuff like that. So.
Okay, Jared, thank you.